Hi, Laura. Thank you very much for joining me today. Please, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Laura Gill and I'm a brand manager here in the Isle of Man.
Thank you. Now, what was it that first sparked your interest in marketing?
I think what first sparked my interest in marketing was the sort of psychology and what really drives people's behaviors and ultimately their decision to buy. And when I was looking at careers, I kind of fell into marketing, but it felt like a really good way to drive that creativity, but also with commercial impact and psychology at the heart of it.
No, interesting. Speak about psychology. Did you study at university at all, or was that just an interest?
So no, I definitely didn't do psychology at uni. I did it at A level and I failed really miserably.
Oh gosh.
I'd say it was more of an interest than an academic skill set.
Yeah.
But it's just always something that I've been really interested in. So yeah, I didn't do a traditional route at all. I did
No.
go to university, but I studied acting.
Okay.
And from there, kind of ended up doing production, and that involved quite a lot of marketing of plays and things like Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So yeah, it was definitely not a linear path into marketing,
Yeah.
but one that I'm really proud of, and I think it's given me a good grounding in lots of different areas.
No, absolutely. That's really interesting. Did you say your degree was in acting? Do you feel that that has helped you in any way in the marketing kind of side of things?
I mean, I think it sort of made sense to me at each step of my career. I wouldn't necessarily advocate that somebody goes into acting and expects to come out in a
Yeah.
marketing career, but I think that there are a lot of different, parallels between the two. So it's ultimately all about communication at the end of the day and making sure that you understand your audience or your customer
Yeah.
and give them what they want. So yeah, it's been a bit of an unusual journey, but
No,
like
I
I
love
say,
that
one that I'm
though.
proud of.
It's nice to see the kind of backgrounds of people that have been in here today as well, because you've got like Emily who came in before who did a degree in, I think she said it first started in like footwear design and then did something else, and Tim with his background as well. So it's really interesting to see where people have come from and what they've developed that into.
Yeah, I don't actually know many marketers that have done marketing necessarily. They
Yeah.
might have done business or something related. But yeah, we're an unusual bunch.
Yeah. So speaking of that in the beginning and that kind of side of things, what was your first role and what did that teach you?
So my first purely marketing role in the Isle of Man was actually for a startup in hospitality.
Okay.
So like a lot of marketing teams in the island, it was definitely a one-man band. You were kind of doing everything from creative, and that was actually 15 years ago. So it was just as people were starting to sort of take on digital marketing channels. I remember it was a big thing when we got a Twitter account. It was very much in that kind of early stage of the adoption cycle.
Yeah.
And at that point, people were really obsessed with having a website. We didn't really know what it was for. And maybe if you were really smart, you were doing a little bit of SEO, but that was kind of the extent of it. So it was a lot of customer marketing communications. And it really taught me that you kind of need to know your customer. You can have the best ideas for events or traffic drivers in the world, but if your customers aren't interested in it, it's not going to succeed. So yeah, it was a kind of fast-paced environment to learn, but being able to do everything was a real kind of challenge and an
Yeah.
opportunity as well.
No, absolutely. I can imagine, I've been speaking this bit before, you're put under this umbrella of marketing and there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes that people don't actually realise.
Yeah.
Especially I can imagine for, you say it was a small hospitality business as well.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot to that as well.
Yeah, it was an amazing company, and it grew really quickly during that period that I was there. So it was just always about what else we could offer people, how we could make that experience. They're not just coming in for a drink or for a meal, how we could make that experience more exciting and obviously cross-selling as well across the 3 different sites.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, speaking on the brand management side of things, what would a typical day or perhaps week look like for you in your role?
So I think the exciting thing about marketing is that there's never really a typical day. In any of the roles I've done, I've found that they've always been so different and every day brings different challenges. But brand management really is about aligning sort of the internal perspective with your external, how you're putting yourself out externally. So a typical day might involve stakeholder meetings, alignment, making sure that you're reviewing different items that have come out from different teams, that they're all adhering to the brand guidelines that you've developed. It could involve creating something like a podcast, getting involved in that creative side, but then also looking at reputation management and being kind of horizon scanning for any challenges that might come up as well. So it's a really, really varied role, and it can be
Mhm.
very different from one industry to another as well.
Yeah. No, I imagine from sort of your perspective, it will be different for, like we said, with the hospitality kind of side of things, a typical day and that will look so much different to a big corporate.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
absolutely. Talking on those big corporates and stuff, they will have big campaigns that they have going out at the minute. Is there any particular sort of brands that you feel are doing well at the minute with their marketing?
I think a good example of that at the moment is Oatly. So the
Hmm.
milk drink, or they're not allowed to call themselves that anymore.
Yeah.
I'd choose them because I think they've always been really true to themselves as a brand. So they've
Hmm.
always had a very sort of challenger brand tone of voice. They've always done things very differently. Even their kind of product packaging has got a bit of a slanted top. Um, and at the moment, they're going through some really interesting challenges with regulation because they're no longer able to call themselves a milk drink.
Hmm.
So they've
Yeah.
actually taken that challenge and turned it into a real opportunity by just strengthening their challenger brand status. And they've been really cheeky in some of their advertising campaigns. And they also do things on quite a shoestring as well. They're a very big company now, but they
Hmm.
still do really kind of interesting guerrilla marketing campaigns where they'll have billboards that they drive around cities and stuff. So I think they're a really interesting brand to watch.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'd heard that thing about them not being able to call themselves a milk drink anymore and found that really interesting actually. So no,
Yeah.
it's cool to have that brought up in conversation.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of the great marketing side of things, so many companies are doing the marketing these days. And what would you say is something that separates good marketing from really great marketing?
I would say that good marketing demands attention. So, yes, you might have an amazing campaign that might have gone viral and has grabbed everybody's attention, everybody's talking about it.
Hmm.
But great marketing is still going to demand that attention, but it's also going to use that to make sure that it delivers strong commercial value. So
Hmm.
they're going to not just stop at that one great campaign, they're going to build on that, and they might be, developing other less viral campaigns at the same time, or different sales pipeline tactics, but they're going to deliver that
Hmm.
on a consistent and ongoing basis.
Yeah, it's that not just sort of one hit wonder, it's that continuing sort of stream of getting the message across that they want to do.
Yeah, and ultimately, marketing only really works if it's driving commercial value. So that
Hmm.
obviously looks very different for fast moving consumer goods
Yeah.
versus iGaming or B2B companies, for instance. But it's the difference between that good and great, I think, is consistency and clarity of
Yeah.
message.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Now, talking on sort of the other side of things, perhaps when things aren't going so well, how would you handle
It's about resilience. So marketing in general,
that?
is a very varied and dynamic, demanding role.
Hmm.
So I think when things aren't going so well, it's about taking a step back, removing the emotion from it as well, because when there's creativity involved, it kind of goes hand in hand with emotion, and people have put
Hmm.
their feelings and their thoughts in it. And so going back to the data wherever it's available to sort of say, why is this not succeeding and
Yeah.
what can we learn from the future? So there are lots of campaigns that maybe don't perform as well as you expect them to,
Hmm.
but it's very rare that a campaign actually completely fails. There's always something to learn from
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's interesting that you say about taking the emotion kind of side of things out of it because I imagine a lot of people do get quite, how to say, quite attached to their ideas. It's very personal to them and they'll see that as a, if it's like more of a personal kind of failure kind of side of things. So to then look at perhaps the data side of things that isn't as human, if that makes sense, and sort of analyze that, that is definitely really interesting.
Yeah, I would say so. I think a lot of people get into marketing because they think it's going to be creative and that they're
Hmm.
drawn by that, like maybe the visual side or the exciting kind of putting on events and ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, you have to bring it back to the data if you want to make sure that it's going to resonate with the audience or the customers that you need it to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think these days we have so much more available to us to analyze that kind of thing. It's something that Tim was building on earlier. It's like you can literally see the full journey now of how your campaign's done, which is
Yeah.
really interesting as well. But talking on the sort of creative kind of side of things and skill set, what kind of skills do you feel has been most valuable to you personally in your career?
Probably a sense of resilience. I think
Hmm.
when you do put those creative ideas out, or when you've invested yourself very heavily in a project and maybe it doesn't happen for a very good reason, having to be resilient, take a step back and ensure that you're always looking at the business element is really key. And I think linking into that as well is commercial acumen. And that's
Mhm.
something that you tend to only really build with experience and as you go through your career. But marketing being seen as just this kind of sideline, team that do their own thing
Mhm.
is just not going to deliver the value that you need it to. So ensuring that marketing has a seat at the table, and the way to do that is by talking the same language as those senior leaders, the same language as the people that are in finance, the same language that are
Mhm.
in compliance. So I think that's probably the best thing that you can do early in your career is start to develop that commercial acumen.
Mhm. No, absolutely. It's that kind of side of getting stuck in with not just the marketing side, like you said, of just keeping more to yourself. It's also getting involved with the other aspects of the business as well. And I suppose that gives you a better understanding of what you're also doing it for at the end of the day
Yeah.
as well.
And I think something that I found in my career is people love to be asked, they love if you
Mhm.
go and spend an afternoon with them or you get involved with, how are you developing your sales? Like how can we help
Mhm.
to impact you? Offering to help people is, always something that
Yeah.
goes down well. So, getting to know the teams that you might be a little bit unfamiliar with or you don't really understand how they work,
Yeah.
go and spend a little bit of time with them. They love to be asked that, I think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think you're definitely right. And seeing people from your industry love to be asked to do things. Like I think with this podcast, I've never had so much interest, like compared to when we were reaching out for the HR kind of side of things and with our next one with the finance side. Marketing's definitely been one of those where I was sort of panicking of, okay, I do need a few people to perhaps say that they're not available because everyone wanted to do it. So that's definitely something that I've seen as well from
Yeah.
that side of things. Um, Talking on your kind of personal side of things as well. I know you've had a baby and congratulations.
Thank you.
And do you feel like your perspective has changed sort of post maternity, perhaps?
I would say my perspective has changed in some ways, and it also hasn't. Ultimately, I still absolutely love my choice of marketing as a career. But it does kind of force you to consider, your ways of working, the hours that you're working,
Yeah.
how you're going to bring your best self when you don't necessarily have all of the hours under the sun to just
Hmm.
give to yourself. I was very much prior to having a baby, I was there, at all hours. I loved getting in the office early. I loved leaving
Yeah.
late and having that sort of time either end of the day to just do my emails or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
So you have to just be a little bit smarter about your time. But I think it's also given me a broader perspective of business and kind of being able to see that one thing that's in front of you actually links into a lot of other things. And what gave me that was the time out, actually. Having
Hmm.
maternity, I was very uncomfortable about leaving my role and handing it over to somebody else for 6 months.
Yeah.
But actually taking a step back and seeing the business that I worked for from the outside gave me so much more that I could bring in when I came back,
Hmm.
because it's once you're in it, it's really hard to see the wood for the trees at times. You
Yeah.
think that because you're working on this campaign, you expect that everybody's seen that campaign. You have to be so much louder than you think that you are
Hmm.
to make sure that it's having that impact from the external perspective. So, yeah, I'd say that was the biggest opportunity that it gave me.
Yeah, absolutely. That time out and just to reflect, I suppose, as well on what you have been doing and perhaps even to reflect on your success and that kind of thing as well, to take a step back and realize when you were handing it over what you have been doing. And I suppose that role also is like your sort of, how do I put this? Almost like a mini baby. You've been looking after that and you've been doing that for however long, and having to take a step back from that as well, I imagine it's quite challenging.
Yeah, challenging, but it teaches you a lot because nobody's bigger than the business.
Hmm.
Your role is always expendable, but in a really great way. Like, I don't mean that in a negative way.
Yeah.
You are just part of a team. And I think taking that time out really enables you. And ultimately, you're raising another baby as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's space for them all. And I love my career still, but I think most of the great people that I know and look up to in business are also mums.
Yeah.
And it's, you have to be able to juggle all those balls.
Hmm.
And luckily, there are a lot of businesses that really support that as well now.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's definitely coming into working. That is definitely when I've been reaching out to different businesses and stuff when I was looking for a job. That is something that I've seen an improvement in from different businesses, that they when they list their benefits and stuff as their maternity leave and that kind of side of things that perhaps wasn't as positive previously. So
Yeah.
there's definitely more that supportive kind of development there as well. So moving on to, I think, something that kind of links to what I just said with coming into new roles and that kind of side of things. If someone was wanting to get into marketing now, perhaps school leaver or university leaver, that kind of side of things, what would they have to be paying attention to now?
Um, I think it probably would be that commercial piece as well. So I think
Mhm.
it's the strongest thing that they can do, if they get into a graduate role, for instance, is understand the business and the industry that you're in, not only in marketing.
Mhm.
The other thing as well is that there's so many tools at everybody's disposal to start creating. So I would say start developing something, make your
Yeah.
own brand. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be committed to it for life, but you can start your own Instagram channel, develop something on TikTok,
Yeah.
use all of the channels that are available to create. And I think that goes a long way when you're looking at CVs and reviewing or being a hiring
Mhm.
manager to say, yeah, I've done this and I've actually had some real world experience by, creating a podcast
Yeah.
or giving it a go. And it also sets your CV out from other people as well.
Mhm. Gives you that extra bit of "this is me" kind of
Yeah,
side.
yeah, absolutely. Like there's so many ways that you can show your individuality and your creative ideas
Mhm.
nowadays that there's almost kind of no excuse not to
Yeah.
give it a go.
No, absolutely. With LinkedIn, especially with my age group, I see it growing so much. It is such a big platform, and I think it's so useful as well for the visual side of things. It's, like you said, a bit of an extension on your CV. It's that extra bit that perhaps employers are gonna look into, and they're gonna
Yeah.
go, "What have they been doing?" Which gives you that little bit extra
Yeah.
edge as well.
Yeah, or bring like a new idea to the table. Like,
Yeah.
actually, I'm here for this role, but I'd be really willing to bring this idea to the table as well.
Mhm.
And I think that extra little bit just makes you stand out in an
Yeah.
interview.
Gives you that little bit of extra pizzazz. But speaking on what we were kind of talking about in the beginning with your degree, now a lot of people my age are debating going to uni, not going to uni, and sort of the value in it. Would you say a degree is important to succeed in marketing?
No, I really wouldn't. I think it can give you a good foundation. Certainly wouldn't rubbish going off to uni and doing marketing or business studies, that type of subject, if that's something that's interesting to you. But it's definitely not a prerequisite. So I don't
Mhm.
have a degree in marketing. I've always been really interested in it, and I kind of from the outset when I started in marketing role, I committed to myself that I was going to do personal study. I listen to a lot of marketing podcasts. I
Yeah.
read a lot of marketing blogs. I'm a massive Mark Ritson fan who writes for Marketing Week. And I kind of thought, I believe that I can develop this skill set away from necessarily a traditional path.
Mhm.
But what I have done, and there are some really great opportunities on the Isle of Man for doing qualifications. So I've done the CIM qualifications and I've
Yeah.
done the 2 mini MBA Marketing Week courses. And I would say that those types of professional academic kind of
Mhm.
skill sets are worthwhile developing.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's great options right here on the island if you wanted to do any learning
Mhm.
away from the classroom.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've heard a lot of people talk about like the CIM and that sort of side of things, and that almost similar to what you said. Perhaps they haven't done a degree that relates to marketing at all, but then they've gone and done those sort of professional qualifications, and that's what they feel has aided them in their career. So,
Yeah, I don't think it's something you have to do, but I think what it certainly gave me is the kind of um, the methodologies to make your decision making more
mhm.
confident, so you can actually when you're having a conversation with your CEO or chief financial officer who wants to know
Yeah.
what the return's going to be, you know that you've got the model to kind of demonstrate that it's going to be guided by something. So those
Mhm.
principles, it just kind of gives you that confidence in your own decisions
Yeah,
or intuition.
absolutely. And moving on to our final question for this podcast, um, what do you feel perhaps has been your biggest lesson that you've learned in your career so far?
I think my biggest lesson would probably be to not think that you know it all.
Mhm.
There for me, marketing is so dynamic because it keeps moving and keeps developing,
Yeah.
and there's always something new to learn. So whether it's a new insight that you're customer has brought to you, and you can use it in your next campaign, or whether it's developing a new skill set, looking at, you know, voice activated engine optimization, which is now replacing SEO. How
Mhm.
are we going to make sure that Alexa puts our brand above anybody else's?
Yeah.
Or whether it's putting some time together for your own personal development because you just want to learn something else about finance or about compliance, for instance. I think just having that, curious kind of mindset that you can always keep learning is
Mhm.
probably the most important thing that I've learned. And to never stay still and keep moving
Mhm.
forward, because marketing is can continue to develop faster than we can,
Yeah.
really.
No, absolutely. I think a lot of people will be able to take that away, and whether it is for marketing or something else, to always keep moving forward and pushing yourself and learning and adaptability and that kind of side of things. So, absolutely. And thank you very much.